Standard of living in France. France ranks above the average in income and wealth, housing, health status, civic engagement, work-life balance, and personal security. It ranks below average in subjective well-being, environmental quality, social connections, education and skills, and jobs and earnings. The average household income per capita is just above 31,000 US dollars per year. About 65% of people aged between 15 and 64 have paying jobs. This is right at about the OECD employment average. Life expectancy in France is 82 years. 99.5% of people in France live in places with private access to an indoor flushing toilet. 78% of adults aged 25 to 64 have completed upper secondary education, which is higher than average by about 4%. Voter turnout is about 75% of those that are registered, which is definitely higher than average, which hovers about 70%. France's homicide rate is less than 1%, much lower than the OECD average of 3.6%, and in France, 70% of people say that they feel safe walking alone at night. Standard of living in Spain. Compared to other countries around the world, Spain far surpasses the average in community life, work-life balance, and safety. The average household income per capita is just above 23,000 US dollars per year. This is below average, and there is a considerable gap between the richest and the poorest. 58% of adults aged 25 to 64 have completed upper secondary education, and life expectancy in Spain is 83 years. Voter turnout, 70% during recent elections. Additionally, 99.9% of people in Spain live in dwellings with private access to an indoor flushing toilet. Moving on towards attitude towards tourists in France. The overarching consensus of hospitality shown towards tourists in France is negative. A survey in 2012 by the website Skyscanner showed France is the #1 rudest country for travelers. However, France relies on tourism as a large contributor to the nation's economy. Issues such as pickpockets and strikes are an obstacle for tourists. It is necessary for people to just say a simple bonjour to engage in conversation. However, small talk is not really part of the French culture. Tourism is the third largest contributor to Spain's economy. It contributes to about 10% of the total GDP annually. However, some Spaniards believe that tourism has disrupted their lives and their country. Protests in Barcelona against tourists are common. It has recently experienced massive overcrowding, which really makes locals upset. Restaurants are constantly flooded with foreigners, so they're forced to eat at home. But Spain is looking to develop and mold the tourist industry more thoroughly in order to avoid any of these problems. Next, I will talk about the European Union and its relationship with the United States. The EU operates as a single market but contains 28 member states. Following Brexit, the United Kingdom voted to leave the EU, which will bring that number down to 27. It was created in the aftermath of World War II with the original goal of opening up trade and decreasing tension among member countries. It has successfully done so thus far. It has also created a single currency, the euro, that is used by 19 of the member countries. These countries are known as Eurozone. Border controls have been eliminated among countries within the EU, so citizens can travel throughout most of Europe without a passport. This allows for more knowledge, ideas, and culture to be shared. The GDP of the EU and the US economy, they're very similar. The main difference lies within the employment rate and working hours. Because the US has a lower employment rate and people work longer hours, the U.S. is considered to be richer if you look at its GDP. Next, I will talk about diversity in Spain and France. I come from Texas, not incredibly diverse, while there is somewhat of a Hispanic presence. From personal experience, Spain, I would say, is more diverse than France. It may be slanted due to the fact that we visited Barcelona as a class and did not go to a more rural area such as Dijon. However, even when you compare Barcelona to Paris, I find Barcelona to be a far more diverse place. Looking at facts, according to a 2017 study, per 1,000 people, Spain has 7.8 migrants, while France only has 1.1. Everywhere in Barcelona, there are groups of people from different parts of the world. Whether it's Indians, Africans, or people from the Middle of the East, Barcelona vastly increased my perspective of the world. Certain migrant groups did certain things. All of the Africans seemed to be selling things on the street or leading you to a cannabis shop, while Indians mainly went to the beach to sell their goods. For religion, both Spain and France's population hovers around 2/3 Catholic. However, a sizable portion of France's population is Muslim, representing almost 10% of France's population.